Hey people, it's Noel Powell here with creationeffects.com, and today we're going to make a 3D field of grass blowing in the wind in Adobe After Effects. So similar to what you're seeing now, and this will be very customizable, so you can make the field as big as you want, and you can use short grass or tall grass or add flowers, whatever you want to do. We're going to use a little bit of AI to create our grass images, so you'll need Photoshop for that. But if you don't have Photoshop, that's okay. I'll put up a download link in the description to download the images that I'm using if you'd rather do that. So we're also going to be doing some expressions to create the wind, and we'll be using an animation preset to quickly spread out all the grass layers. The preset is a totally free download, no strings attached, so let's just get right to it. I'm in Photoshop, and generative fill is still in Photoshop beta right now, and they seem to tweak it like every 2 or 3 weeks. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to the process just because it might be obsolete by the time you watch this video. But basically right now I've got a new document that's 1200 by 1200 pixels. And to start out, I'll just draw a selection of the general shape of how I want my grass to be. And I'll type in tall green grass, and just so it doesn't create some artistic style, I'm going to put in photo in there as well, and I'll hit generate, and you can see it's coming up with 3 variations, which will be very helpful. Okay, that's too short, and that's pretty short too. Let me change this. I'm going to say tall green grass and reeds. Okay, this is a little better. So if you see one you like I think I might use this one, what I can do is select the whole thing, and I'll copy merged. So copying both these layers together, I'll Shift Command C or Shift Control C, and then paste it, and now I've got this layer that we can come back to later. So I'll hide it for now. And we just need some more grasses similar to this. We could use this one. I'm just going to keep hitting generate, and I'll skip ahead until I find 4 that I like. So I've got 3 here so far, and the great thing about this is you can customize this for whatever you need. So you can just type in, I think I'm going to add some flowers to this. I'll just say wildflowers and see what it comes up with. Okay, I stopped at 5 images. These last 2 have some flowers in them, which I thought might look good. So we're ready to prepare these for import into After Effects. I'm just going to delete our generative fill layer here. And we need to remove this white background. And there are lots of different ways to do that in Photoshop, but usually what I like to do, I'll just go to Select and Color Range, and I'll select a white color. And then I'll shift select another area of the background down here that isn't as pure white. And that'll add to the selection a little bit, and make sure the fuzziness is high enough. And I'll click OK. And instead of deleting it right now, I'm going to make it feathered a little bit. I'll go to Select and Modify, Feather, and then just do 1 pixel. And now I can delete it. And just to see that my selection is clean, I'm going to actually deselect for now. And I'm going to add a black background. And I'll reselect that. And I've still got my feathered selection here, and I'm just going to delete one more time. And that's going to take a little bit more off the edges. And that looks good because I don't see any white halos around these edges, and they're not so sharp that they look jagged. They're smooth and soft. I think that'll do fine for what we're doing. And I'm just going to do that with the rest of these layers now. Okay, done with that. And we want to save these now with a transparent background. So I'll hide the black background, and I'll go to File, and we want Save a Copy. And we'll change the format. You could use a PNG, but I like using WebP. It's just a fraction of the size. And we'll call this Grass 1. And a quality in the 70s is good. Click OK. And then we'll just do that for each layer. Okay, I'm in After Effects now, and we need to import these images in there. And I'll start a new comp, and it can be HD. I'll just call it Field of Grass. And we'll drag these in there. Okay, I'll unhide all but the first one. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a wind effect, a swaying motion to this layer. And we're going to make it random so that each layer that has it is going to have its own random sway. And then we'll duplicate those layers a bunch of times to populate our field. And I'll show you a quick way to spread them all out. So let's add a wind effect to this. This technique will be, it's actually a simplified version of one I created for a recent template called Landscaper. Landscaper is a massive template that lets you make custom landscape animations in After Effects. So you can create anything from beaches to deserts, jungles, swamps, fantasy landscapes, grasslands, you name it. And part of that was making lots of cool nature effects, and wind was one of those. And you can kind of see how I used it on some of the plants in these landscapes. All of these landscapes, 30 in total, come with the package. So you could just drop in a 3D title or a 3D logo in there and render out a cool landscape animation. Or you can build your own, and you can add water to it just by drawing the shape of the water with your pen tool. And you can easily create time lapses. You can set the time of day to see your landscape in any kind of light, like at sunset or at nighttime. There's just a ton of things you can do. So I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to check out the demo video for that. It's really cool stuff. Anyway, let's talk wind. To do this effect, we're going to need a couple different effects on here. So the first one is the CC slant effect. And then we need CC bend it. I'll hide the CC bend it for now and bring up my effects. I'll hit the E key. And let's just look at what CC slant does. It slants it. Shocking, right? It's slanting from down here. You can see that the base is moving. So to make sure that it starts moving from here, we're going to move this up to the bottom of the grass. And we need to make it wiggle back and forth like this. So we're going to explore some expressions. And don't freak out. I'm going to show you what to do. If you're new to expressions, then this expression is probably the best one to know. It's the wiggle expression. So I'm going to open the expression box by alt-clicking this little stopwatch icon. And we can write our expression here. So let's just do a really simple wiggle expression. I'll type in wiggle. And we need two values. The first is the speed. We'll do 0.7. And then the second value is the amount. And I'll do 25. Okay, so this is how it works. Every 0.7 seconds, this value is going to fluctuate by about an amount of 25. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, good start. But when we want to explore different values, we don't want to come in here and edit the numbers every time, especially when we've got tons of layers with this effect on it. So what I'm going to do is create a control layer. I'll go to Layer, New, Null Object. And for now, we'll just call it Control. And I'm going to put some controls on here that will let us adjust these values for all the layers all at once. So we need some slider controls. Drag that on there. And this control will be for the speed. Call it wind speed. I'll duplicate it. This one will be wind amount. I'll duplicate it again. This one will be octaves. We'll talk about what that is. And I'm going to do one more. This one will be sustained wind. Okay, now we just need to connect our expression to these slider controls. So before our wiggle expression, I'm going to define some variables. Speed equals this slider control. So I just set up basically an abbreviation of this control, and I'll end that line with a semicolon. And now I'll do amount equals this one, and octaves will be this one, and sustained So now, instead of these values, we can just switch this to speed. Speed always comes first, and then the amount. And we still need to put our values in here. So we used 0.7 for speed, 25 for the amount. And now if we play it back, it should be the same as before. But notice that these are very big and very smooth movements, not very realistic. We want some more detail in the movements. So that's where octaves come in. And not a lot of people use this or know about it, I think, but it's really handy. We'll just do another comma and we'll type octaves. And we'll give our octaves a value of 2.5. Okay, I think that's a little better. But right now it's wiggling back and forth from that original pose. Realistically, if there is a lot of wind, it'd be coming from one direction and all the grass would be bent in that direction. So we can just add 25 to the value. And then down here, we'll just say plus sustained. Okay, it's a start. We're going to work on this some more. Let's look at what CC Bended does. I'll turn off slant. And I'll increase the bend amount here. Kind of bends the whole layer. It warps it. It's not really bending from the base right now, but if we move this little crosshair down to where the grass starts, now it'll bend from the bottom. And you may have also noticed that the sides are getting cut off. But if we move this top crosshair upward, let me zoom out a little bit. We'll just keep moving it up till we see the whole layer, and then we'll move it up a little more because we want to be safe. And we're going to be copying these effects to every layer, and each grass clump is a little different. So I'm going to actually bring it up even more. Okay, we want to use a combination of the slant and the bend it, but we don't want them both acting independently and randomly because that would look weird. So I'm going to link this amount to this amount. I'll open the expression box and we can just link it with this little pick whip tool here. Okay, and now this value will always be exactly what this value is. But I actually want this one to work on a little bit of a delay. So in other words, I want it to start to slant and then start to bend. And what that'll do is it'll make it look more flexible because the whole grass will start moving forward, but then the top part will kind of whip forward and it'll look more flexible and more realistic. So what we can do is just add something to this expression. We'll do period value at time. Now, whatever time we put in these parentheses, it will grab the value at that time on that specific frame and it'll put it here. So what I'm going to put in these parentheses is time minus 0.3. So time is just our current time. It's like the time code here. If we go to 5 seconds, then time is 5 seconds. If we do time minus 0.3 seconds, then it's actually looking at a little bit before 5 seconds. And it's grabbing the value at that time and putting it here. And it's going to result in kind of a wobble. Too much wobble. Let's try 0.2. And the whole thing is too much. I did that on purpose so that you can see it better. But that's what's great about these controls. We can go back and we can reduce the amount or the speed and just get it to how we like it. And after watching this just now, I realized that the slant is probably too strong for the bend. So what I'm going to do is just multiply the bend by 2. Do times 2. So this will always be twice whatever that value was at that time. And then in the control layer, we'll just bring the amount down a little bit. And I like that a little better. Okay, so now we can just copy these effects and paste them to the other layers. And now these layers could be duplicated as they are to populate your field. And you could do that just by positioning them all individually, or you could try adding expressions to them. Either way, it's going to be a lot of work. I'm actually going to be using a preset called GridScape. And it's 100% free. You can download it at creationeffects.com. And what it does is it will let you quickly arrange a whole bunch of layers into a grid, a 3D grid or a 2D grid. And it lets you easily customize their position with slider controls. So it'll only take a minute. If you go to the site, you can download that, you can install it, and then you can access it in After Effects whenever you need it. And there's a video there that shows you how to do it if you're not sure. And I'll leave a link in the description of where you can download it. But I've already got it installed, so I'm just going to do a search for it. So there are 2 animation presets here. This one goes on the control layer, so I'll put that. And we already have a control layer here, so I'll put it there. The only thing is this has to be called grid control layer. And if you look on the controls that were added, there's some instructions here, this part right here, and it tells you what to do. But I'm just going to show you. So this needs to be called grid control layer, and these layers need to have grid layer in their name somewhere. So I'll just copy those words and put them at the end of each name. And I'll select those layers and double click this second preset that says grid layer. Oh, and actually before I do that, I already did it, but you want to check the 3D layer for all of those layers. And they're still selected, so I'll just do it again. If you don't do that first, it won't work right. And now I'll add a camera layer to this. Go to layer, new, camera, and we can make it 50 millimeter. And I'll use my camera tools. That's the C key. If you don't have this, just keep hitting the C key to cycle through the tools. I can move this camera back. Okay, if we look on our control layer, we've got all these grid controls here. And these expression controllers, you can just ignore those. But mostly we're going to need these grid spacing controls and the randomize controls. So these will space them out evenly, and then this will add random position to the layers. So if I start increasing the X spacing, you can see that spreads them out along the X axis. And you can see that we can set the number of columns and the number of rows here. So I'm going to increase the number of columns. We want to see more. So let's have maybe 7. We don't want this number to match our number of layers because we don't want to see a pattern. We want them to be all mixed up. So we'll do 7 columns and make sure that the rows are set to 1. And we'll add a little bit of Z spacing, maybe like 350. And now watch what happens when I duplicate these layers. Once it gets to be more than 7, any additional layers get pushed back in Z space. And it's hard to see right now because we're looking at them straight on, but let me use the camera tool to move the camera up. Whoops, that didn't work. Oh, we need to double click your camera layer, make sure that this is a 2-node camera. That gives it a point of interest that we can orbit around. Okay, I probably want to push them back a little further, 600. Okay, and now that I've got quite a few in there, I'm going to select them all, copy them, and paste. Okay, how many is that? Only 77. Those are rookie numbers. You can do a lot more than that. Don't be shy. I was using well over 1,000 earlier, but this is good for now. It'll keep it faster to work with. So once you get them all spread out, you don't want to be able to see that they're evenly spaced. So we're going to add some random position here. We'll add some on the x-axis and just a little bit on the y-axis. And we'll do z-axis as well. And we can do it with the rotation and scale as well. You can see we've got control over each dimension. So on the x-axis we can stretch these out or squeeze them. I think these are percentages for scale, so maybe just like maximum 25% on the x and y. Z-axis, that won't do anything. They don't have any real depth to them. And then rotation, maybe 10 degrees on each dimension. Okay, looking more random now. Add some more random Y position to get some that are taller. There are some other things you can do with this GridScape tool. If we open up these incremental controls, we can do stuff like make some hills or slant these. Let's just play around with this. Okay, so there's a hill. Or if we go in the opposite direction, you get kind of a valley. I kind of like that. We'll do that. If you turn off this little symmetry checkbox, you can just make it one slant. Anyway, you can play with those if you want. I'll keep it like this. And I'm going to add a lot more grass layers by duplicating these. But for now, let's add a background to this. You might have something in mind already, but I'm just going to go to Pixabay. That's my go-to. Everything's free and it's glorious. What are we doing? Let's do an ocean. Actually, instead of a photo, if we're doing water, let's make this videos. Okay, I found this free clip of the ocean. It's nothing special, but I think it'll work well with this. So I'll just bring it down to the bottom and I'll enable 3D and I'll push it way back, maybe 20,000 pixels, and scale it way up. Okay, now I'll select all the layers and I'll copy and paste them several times. Okay, so you can keep doing that until you run out of patience. It is going to get slower the more layers you add. I've got about 600 and I think I'll stop there. This is kind of a mess. You can see through the grass in some places. So I'm going to look at it from my side view, from the right side, and zoom out. So a couple problems here. And actually I might bring these a little closer to each other on the Z-axis, maybe 500. And then our background layer, I'm going to push that back. That might not work with so many layers, so I'm just going to enter in the value manually. 30,000 pixels. And let's see where our camera is. So we've got all these layers slowing down our comp and they're not even in view of our camera. So let's move our camera way back. I'll try 25,000 pixels. Okay, now they're in front. Let's see what that looks like. I think that's better. And actually, if we zoom in, it might help with that problem we saw earlier, being able to see the base of the grass. Okay, I also moved the camera down a little bit. You don't have to do any of this. You can put it wherever you want, whatever you think looks good. I do need to fix this background though. I can solo it to make it run faster. I could add a camera movement to this. I'll orbit to the side a little bit and then add a position and point of interest keyframe. Go forward like 10 seconds. And then orbit the other way. First I'll move forward, maybe like 7,000 pixels. And we won't really know what that looks like until we preview the whole thing. Okay, I adjusted the camera position a bit and I put an image underneath this grass just in case we see through to behind these layers. I just put a grass texture back there and it's not even 3D, it's just kind of sitting there and it won't move, but I think it'll help. And I should mention that this GridScape preset was created for this template I just finished called Shapeshift. And Shapeshift lets you create some really cool 3D transitions with your footage in After Effects. It's really trippy looking. It's got all these shapes that you rotate around and your footage is kind of projected onto it. And it just kind of has this really mesmerizing effect. So you can check out Landscaper and you can check out that one. I'll leave links for them in the description. And if you go to creationeffects.com, you're going to find a ton of cool free stuff, free templates and free presets, free tutorials, and just also there's a lot of really cool, unique effects there that are lots of fun to play with. There's a creation trippy effects. That one is just a huge collection of trippy or psychedelic effects for your footage, as well as a bunch of mesmerizing hypnotic animations, which you can customize to suit your needs. Also, Infinite Horizon, that's another trippy one. I like trippy stuff. This one will let you make 3D perspective bending scenes from your landscape footage. Also, Micro. Micro is for creating custom microscopic animations that imitate what it looks like through a microscope. There's the Critter Collection series, which is 3 templates for making critters. So there's flocks for creating flocks of birds, and there's swarms for creating custom swarms of insects, and there's also schools for creating 3D schools of fish. And another good one is Creation Artifacts, which lets you turn your footage into animated artwork in just about any medium that you can think of. That's it. I hope you liked that tutorial. There's more on the way, as well as lots of free animation presets and free effects, all of which you can download at creationeffects.com. So I'll see you at the next tutorial.